Hey everybody, it's Doctor here with Typical Manga Fan, and this episode of the Typical Manga Review is dedicated to Bleach, Chapter 664, The Gift, which sadly does not come with a gift receipt. And we pretty much opened with where we left off last week with Askin Naklavar, basically in JoJo mode, as he talks about the reality changes 48 times per second. In other words, I'm absorbing 48 different types of patterns per second. And apparently his Volstanda gives him the ability to make himself immune to all of them as long as the base stays the same, which in this case is Yoruichi.
Yeah, so
As you have said before, everything before this moment rendered worthless.
exactly right.
Yes.
So he just goes on this a little bit of explaining about how his powers work. It's basically just an amped up version of his powers, which is how power ups tend to go. So basically, and here's the really funny part. And after that, he says, "From the kindness of my heart, I'm going to share with you the properties of my balls ending." So we're not even being subtle about this. He's actually just going to say it.
Yeah, it's
I know this happens a lot in Bleach, and we've made fun of it, but I mean, he's just they're not even being subtle. It's just being right out there in the open. I'm going to explain to you my powers. I know exactly what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it because I'm nice.
Yeah, and I'm just like, whatever.
I don't. Okay, so he basically gives a long ass explanation. I don't really want to go into it because really.
Yeah.
So basically, he says that he doesn't believe that Urahara can hurt him anymore.
Yep.
And that he thinks that he thinks that Urahara still has something that he can use, and so he basically goes Urahara into doing something, and then just to be on the safe side, he set up something called the Byrak border, which is basically
might be the rake or rake. Or no,
right.
You're right. Right, because third rake, etc.
Yeah. But so basically so that that Urahara can't escape. That's basically what it is. And also, I think he also made it so that the poison is everywhere, so that means Urahara is slowly getting poisoned just from being inside, right?
Yep.
That is it.
I do like Urahara. He's like, after he told all this, like, if you wanted this to stay so badly, all you had to do was ask.
Yeah. So he basically, Aspen just responds with saying, "Like, my enemies, I gotta be cautious about this." And so then they talk about loyalty, and basically Urahara's trying to understand why Askin wants to follow Yubak, and look, the previous Quincy's have been hinted as basically, Yubak saved them from his life, whatever.
Yeah.
And
or at least gave them some reason to be personally loyal.
Yeah, and then that's why they are loyal. Well, yes, but they're obviously but definitely from what we've seen, their loyalties have differed in terms of magnitude. So we have people who would willingly give their lives to Yubak, and there are people who got pissed off when he betrayed them. So in this case, we have Askin, who just says, "Well, he's interesting. I want to see." His goal is to basically destroy all the three, all the three worlds, and
wasn't there a hell at one point?
Yeah, there's a hell too. I don't know why he didn't think of it. I guess people just forgets his own stuff. I mean, yeah, hell was a thing.
Yes.
And he's interested in seeing what Yubak will be afterwards, And he says, like, "Look, Urahara, you look like the guy who basically wants to see this type of stuff, right? So, aren't you curious as well?" So basically, his thing is curiosity.
Yeah.
Which still doesn't really, it's like, okay, whatever. I mean, you're still a psychopath because this is curiosity in the face of killing many people, and not even, and so his morality still hasn't changed. So I'm not really.
Yep. And at this point, is this when Urahara attacks him now?
Yeah, he attacks him and uses that technique that I don't remember him using against Aizen.
Yeah.
But basically, Urahara replies saying,
he pretty much points out that if you were talking to Kurozuchi, he'd probably have a soulmate, or at least somebody who would be listening. Only with the difference that rather than simply sit back and watch, Kurozuchi would want to destroy the place with himself.
Yeah. So let's see, and then he basically says, he's the type to create, and that's what it means to be a true scientist. As a guy who's studying biology, I kind of disagree.
There's a few forum posts that kind of brought this up. Like, I think the idea is like he's trying to get across like research, discovery, all these things. Like, as a scientist, you're compelled to want to bring them to do them yourself rather than just sit back and watch someone else do it.
Yeah, I guess that's true, but I mean, I mean, it's tricky because in real life, science is a team effort. You know,
Yeah.
everyone publishes, everyone combines their knowledge. But I mean, it's just, I don't know. This is, I mean, remember, this is coming from a guy who's not a scientist himself, so he probably has an idea of
Absolute
what
zero.
science is. Sorry?
Absolute zero.
Yeah. I mean, that's just him having the facts wrong. That's just it. But in terms of philosophy, I mean, again, he's not a scientist, so he probably has an idea of what a scientist is. But as a person who's studying science myself, I have to disagree with this. Um, there's way more to it than just even just doing yourself. Like observation, some people just observe their entire lives and report what they find to other people,
Yep.
and that's totally good science.
Yep.
So again, I have to disagree. But so basically, Askin says that that's actually a good answer. Again, I disagree on that, but he says, regardless, I still want to see Yuobok's creations, His Majesty's creations, and he uses the power gift ring.
And like a true JoJo, he strikes a pose when he does it.
And this is actually pretty brutal. The ring actually goes inside of Urhar's eye.
And
it
then
looks
seems
disgusting.
to blow it up, yeah.
Because it looks like he pierces his eye, which, by the way, it's just the very idea of someone piercing the eye is so disgusting. I mean,
yeah, I mean, my brother actually had that happen when he was like a little kid.
Oh, why did you tell me that? What happened to him? Is he okay?
It was like a lawn dart or something like that. It pretty much did cost him the eye eventually. He has a fake eye now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Ugh. Why, dude?
Anyway, it's like Askin explains the attack. It's extraordinarily strong and only used on troublesome ones where death dealing doesn't work by itself. And focuses all of the death dealing's potency into one specific point. Pinpointing it on the part of the body that currently bears the piercing forces an instant death.
So basically, he can attack body parts and immediately destroy them. So basically, he says, like, you know, I can't hold myself. I can't hold back. I gotta go all out because you're powerful too. So, but then Urhara says, well, don't say I didn't warn you. And then the words that a lot of people have been waiting for ever since like volume 14 or whatever, Bankai, and he's Canon, Baraki, Benihime, Atarame.
I would say allow me because I can usually do these somewhat decently.
Oh yeah, you do it then.
Yeah, Kanan, Biraki, Benihime, Atarame. And then you have the little translator note there: Inquisition of the Crimson Princess of the Doors of. Okay, there you go. And her cleavage is bigger than his head.
Actually, I've heard people. I've heard actually people that say that he actually held back on that because you know. That's what some people have said, but now that I look at it closely, which I usually don't, which is interesting because I didn't actually care about that, but now that I was pointed out, I'm actually looking. It's like, well, it actually is bigger than his head.
And it's like the big problem I have with the design we're seeing right here is we're getting this not long after Kyoraku. I mean, are humanoid bankais the thing going forward here?
Hey, well, at least I hope he doesn't have a relationship with this one because. That was really disturbing last time. But I mean, we'll keep in mind that they're actually the only two who have not female, but who have a Zanpakuto spirit of the opposite gender. They're the only two.
That's right. You did say so. You did tell me. I remember you telling me about that before.
Yeah, they're the only two who have supposedly so far. I mean, we're not including Renji's whole thing with that filler stuff. So so far in terms of manga, we have confirmed only two. Okay, so I mean. Basically, he's going to use his Bankai, and we see that his left eye is like really like it turned into like a deep, like very scary type of image, like staring into Askin's soul, basically.
And while we don't know what his power is, we can assume one thing safely, which is that the power will be perfectly suited to defeating Askin in this form.
Yeah. The thing though is that I will say this, the Bankai was mentioned before, so. You can argue that in this case, not necessarily best. Like, it's not like he just pulled this out of his ass. This thing was probably thought of for a long time. Because he said, when Chad was like, hey, why don't you use your Bankai to train me? Urahara said, well, my Bankai isn't suited for training people. Some people might think that it's I think some people should translate it like something about the like the it's related to Hinduism, Buddhism, or something along the lines, and
Yeah.
then something about mercy, and I remember reading about that. But I can't I don't remember the sort. I don't remember. Well, I mean, I do remember I got it, but I can't find it. So I something about mercy and uh and something. Oh, and about enlightenment. So like it's
Yeah.
about it's coming from like a deity or something that who could have gotten enlightened but decided to stay back to kind of like help everyone or something
Yeah.
for like the better of the world. So maybe it's like a reference to the fact that Urahara could have been more powerful, or maybe he have ascended to a higher like rank or a higher like being or whatever, but he chose not to kind of help out the one everyone else,
Yeah.
to stay in the mortal world, or
Like he could have done what Aizen tried to do, basically.
something something like maybe not specific like exactly, but like something like maybe he could have been a royal guard, but he chose not to, stuff like that, because it was implied that he did work with the royal guard, or at least with the Soul King. So yeah, something along those lines. Although we could always think about how is it, because they're often, you can always find, I think you can find a relationship to how it's a Bankai is to a Shikai. So his Shikai is all about defense and shields and all that.
Yeah.
And but then also some attacking. So maybe some type of enhancement of that. Maybe it's like a cancellation of powers. Maybe it's like a reversal of powers.
Or maybe an anti-barrier for the one he's got going.
Yeah. And anti-barrier. I mean, yeah. So I mean, I know some people will probably think that it's perfectly like suited, and maybe you can argue that maybe Askin was perfectly was made just to be the guy, the enemy for Urahara. But I'll give, for this one, I'll give Kuma the benefit of the doubt because he has mentioned the Bankai before, and
Yeah.
And I remember that also this Bankai was the one, he got this Bankai through his through the same way Ichigo did, because he invented the.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
thing.
Didn't
So-
Yoruichi do that too?
No,
or
no, only Urahara and Ichigo.
Because I thought Yoruichi was mentioned along with it, but
No.
I am not as big a Bleach lore nerd as I am for, say, One Piece. So
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure she.
yeah, you need an obscure One Piece fact. I am your man.
Yeah. So yeah, but everyone, a lot of the conversation, like I hope it's not a perfect Bankai that completely counters this. As I said, one thing I want to point out is that a lot of people are saying, like, they don't want Bankais to completely succeed because it just makes the enemy look well. Like, you don't want it. You want to make sure, like they said, like they're the Quincy's, they're the most powerful enemy in the final arc. You want them to be resilient. So having a Bankai just one shot them would be too easy. But I also say, like, I also ask the opposite question. We're like, well, if it doesn't do anything, then that makes the opposite effect, where it seems too weak.
It's a tricky balance.
Like, and the balance has been effed up by Kubo. Like, that's the thing though. Like, I've asked this question so many times in our reviews, but like I always ask, what does it look like to you? Does he look strong or does he look weak from that image? And I wish what I want is that it does affect him, but not like it does do damage, but so that way Askin has to do something different and drastic. And but make it so that the damages accumulate. Don't make it so that this Bankai actually didn't work at all, so then something else has to be done.
Right.
Make it so that,
like you were saying before, like how the Volstanda kills everything.
Yeah, don't make the last shot like the only one shot. Make it so that there's some exchange going on, but also you can also show even if it's just not one, even if it's with a lot of blows and a lot of back and forth, you can still show who's dominating the fight.
Yeah.
I think I mean like the Bianco fight again. It wasn't just 1 or 2 hits. They were slashing a lot, but you could tell that Bianca was the dominator, the dominant one. I think Grimjaw was originally dominant, and then you could see that Ichigo slowly started turning it back on him.
Yep.
That was another thing. The Okiura thing was but I know Grimjaw and Byakuya are good examples of showing that you don't have to have 1 or 2 blows to really show who's dominant. You can have multiple exchanges. Have a lot of moving around, but also show that he's blocking some of the attacks, but a lot of the attacks are coming through, and he's slowly getting more damage as time goes on. And you can do a lot of good stuff. I mean, I don't think I have to tell people this. I mean, they should know what I'm talking about here. Like, because fighting is more than just 1 or 2 shots and standing still. You're moving around. you're giving a lot of blows. You're not putting everything in one shot. I mean, I think that's actually considered bad fighting. Don't put everything in one shot
Yeah.
unless it's like the last thing you could possibly do. Be able to moderate how much power you put into each punch, each slash. So, and I don't know why Kubo changed that. I think it's because it was easier to extend a chapter or drag a chapter on by doing the whole thing he's doing now. But it's not that he never doesn't do this. He's done it many times before. It's just he hasn't done it at all since this chapter, since this arc kind of began. Maybe a few exceptions. I think maybe you can argue the Kirjay fight with Ichigo. Maybe towards the end, like the beginning, it just was stupid. But towards the end, you could see that Kirjay was still defending himself, trying to attack back, but he was slowly losing the fight. Like you could see that actually was that was actually the last time I think a fight actually really excited me, because I actually saw Ichigo like slowly turning the fight. Kirjay was still doing everything he could, but he was still losing. So it was like, oh my gosh, this is an actual back and forth fight. That's actually you can see who's the ones winning, who's winning. So that type of thing I want to see again.
Yeah. But my own big worry is that, like you were mentioning before, but I really am worried we're going to see another example of the power that's exactly suited to this person, like we saw with Yoruichi last chapter, or with Nanao and the Aspel, Sword of Aspel.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's already from the formula of the girl has to get saved by the guy. So
yeah. I mean, we are still going to get into switcheroo fights with here, which is a pattern that I like. It's just everything else I've had issues with.
I hope that if we ever go back to the Gerard, like I actually thought about this too, but like if we go back to the Gerard fight, I hope the first thing we don't see is it's a guy on the ground like barely holding his own or something, because that's happened already multiple times. We want to show. Yes, we want to show that the Quincy's are powerful, right? We want to show that.
I think we've done that plenty with Gigantor so far.
Well, we have to make it so that they're not the people fighting them, the Shinigami fighting them are not worthless, because that's what I've been getting though. Like they attack with their strongest attack. Gerard doesn't feel anything, or this Quincy doesn't feel anything, and just like one shots him. It's too much one shotting. See, that's the problem. When you one shot people, you get the extremes. You get either it's extremely powerful or you get extremely weak. So that's the problem. When you deal with one shots, you go to the both sides of the spectrum. You should go in the middle where you see that he's not powerful enough to beat this guy, but he's still able to damage him at a small extent.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to see variation basically in these fights. Don't give one side. Don't make it seem so. Don't make the back and forth seem like it's from one all the way to one side to the other.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of just be in the middle, lean towards one side, and maybe shift occasionally depending on how you want the fight to go. But when you do the back and forth type of thing, don't go from all the way one side of the room to the other side, because then we're just like, okay, that's ridiculous. No, that's when people get tired. That's when people get pissed off, and that's where I think it does go too far. So yeah, that's that. So you were saying?
It's like lost my train of thought there myself. It's like I already went. Okay. Yeah, I was like, we were talking about a forum I went to before. Like they have a shot box, like the one on the forum that you guys have. The what was it there? Anime Fans Worldwide forum. Yeah. They have a shout box on there. Like I was kind of conversing in it, and at one point Bleach comes up as a topic. Like people were genuinely surprised Bleach was even still going. First of all,
is this a One Piece forum?
No, Conan actually.
Oh, okay.
Was like I kind of gave my own opinion that it starts out good, but it starts declining in quality, and I pretty much used them now as the example.
how's it? Wait, you mean like how like maybe you thought that it was like she was getting amped up? She was getting hyped up.
The way I'm trying to remember how I described it, but basically like kind of referring to like how the Aspels and the treatment of female characters. A female character has exactly the right weapon for exactly the right fight, but for this particular battle, but her inexperience in actual combat means her captain has to stay by her side and help her through it.
Oh yeah, that.
Yeah, and it's like at least one person's like, that's kind of sad.
Yeah, well, tell Bleach that's sad because they're never gonna. So I think the last thing I'll say about speaking of Bleach fans is that I was listening to weekly manga recap
Yeah.
for
Oh yeah.
chapter last week,
This is what
right?
you were telling me before we started here.
Yeah, but I want to see it on record. Um, he Nick, who Rule of Time, who's one of the people on the podcast, had a long ass pause when he got to the part where Yoruichi became a cat demon thing, a lightning cat demon, and he basically said that he felt it was really offensive, and because it's basically you have she lost her speech, and she basically became Urahara's pet, and this was done against her will, and she was and the sexualization of hers went like over the roof, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said like he thinks that it's offensive and that it's a complete it's not right because he said that Yoruichi was the person that we know as Yoruichi, the characters. It just doesn't fit with her because she's so proud. She's not like willing to do something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and she wasn't. Like so, it was against her will. And then there was a comment saying that he thought that Why Rule of Time was biased with the cat with cat girls, electric cat girls, and then he said that Nick,
Which, by the way, is a very specific bias.
I know, right? Like I was just thinking to myself, like, what bias is that? Do you honestly think he has like a bias against that? No way. But and then he said the second sentence was, oh geez, man, why don't you get off your period, or get off your period, man? Which is such a provocative thing to say. I mean, this is the type of shit that happens in
You never want to blame that on a person's anger on that, especially if you happen to be right.
Yeah, but it's such a it was obviously made to be provocative, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, the first thing was what kind of bias? He had a problem with the sexualization and the deconstruct and the de-evolution of the character, into a pet, basically, not with the electric cat girl bias, How about you? Aren't you maybe? What about you? Aren't maybe you're biased? Maybe you like electric cat girls. Maybe you maybe you're attracted to this form, and you don't like it when someone's saying something different. And the worst part is like that's like the only two sentences he gave. He didn't respond to any of Why Ruler of Time's comments about why he didn't like that Yoruichi's sexualization. And like that's the thing though. Like first off, there's gonna be bias in everything you say, like because we all have our own unique perspectives and standards on on analyzing stuff. There's always gonna be bias in everything. What's really important is that you explain it. You give evidence. You say, okay, because I see this, because I see that, because I see that, I therefore will interpret it as this. Which is, and so this guy not only is, the irony is that he's giving an even more biased type of rebuttal. But he's not even giving that much of a rebuttal. He's just saying two sentences that is provocative, and it doesn't even add to the conversation. So I'm just kind of annoyed that these are the people who are that we often reviewers have to deal with. I mean, we can ignore them, but sometimes if they get too much, then they get too much. I didn't respond to him because I thought there was no point. But yeah, I mean, I am a fan of weekly manga recap, but I will disagree when I have to. But in that case, I'm behind the 1%, just because in fact it doesn't even matter if I agree or don't agree. That the way the guy responded, even if it was a dissenting opinion, which is okay to have a dissenting opinion, was just, it didn't add anything to the conversation. It was literally a troll comment because it is provocative and it didn't add anything. That's the two criteria I use to determine if something is a troll comment or not. Provocative and doesn't add anything. So that's what I say.
Yep. Yeah, I think you covered any point that I would really want to make in here in this case. I'm just here to make extra witty commentary. Alright, so that has been our review of Bleach, Chapter 664, The Gift You Cannot Return, even if no matter how badly you wish you could. Go ahead and take us away.
Bye.